Deserts are nature's perfect hiding place for strange things. The climate can be so hostile to traverse that few people will risk dying after a few hours exposure in the hopes of finding something worthwhile. The lack of even basic of life forms like bacteria in some deserts mean that bizarre and mysterious objects can be preserved much longer and more often than normal. The extreme environment is also good for creating all sorts of novel flora and fauna. For unsavory types, the desert is perfect for doing nefarious deeds, where they imagine there wouldn't be prying eyes to worry about. So let's search the sands seeking something strange. Here are 10 strange things found in the desert. Number 10. Chinese Desert Patterns. In 2011, Rural Earth users found objects in nearby desert areas of China's Xinjiang and Gansu provinces that made the supposedly paranormal crop circles look downright quaint. While a few large buildings were quickly identified, the more intriguing and seemingly haphazardly designed collections of white lines carved into the ground defied any immediate explanation and came off as especially suspicious for having been made in remote areas. These were not small objects either. The Guardian reported that some stretched out for as much as roughly half a mile to 1.5 miles. The answer turned out to be a little ingenious, but relatively benign. They are used by the Chinese government to orient their spy satellite and they calibrate their lenses. Knowing the relative distances and angles for different portions of the pattern allows the satellite operators to know if they are reading certain distances properly or how well the focus is working. These, it should be noted, are not secret satellites, and it's not a practice that unique to China either. There's one case in Casa Grande, Arizona, that no, that serves the same purpose, which dates back to the 1960s. Number 9. Ancient Egyptian Burial Boat. For ancient Egyptians, it was fairly common practice to conclude a vehicle of some kind in the tomb. The famous tomb King Tut and had 6 chariots in it. Others favored putting boats in theirs, and this was hardly restricted to the elite. Even the peasants class would put cheap but affordable reed boats in their graves with them, but one was discovered in the Saharan desert after 4,500 years in the sands of the absurd necropolis was quite baffling. The vessel unearthed in 2016 was 60 feet in length, only about 6 feet shorter than a warship of the time. It was made of especially high quality wood, hence it still being relatively intact when it was excavated. What was odd was that it wasn't buried in the grave of a noble or a general or anyone like that. Instead, the person entombed with it was a commoner. How could a peasant have afforded such a boat? How could the family have possibly afforded to pay to have the equivalent of a destroyer buried with him, or even have it transported inland? The answer for people curious about the true nature of the past of is frustratingly lost in the sand swirls history. Number 8. Desert Graveyard for Sea Mammals. Speaking of great graveyards, the mystery boat is hardly alone in terms of finding surprising burial sites in the sands. In the Atacama Desert in Chile, there is a hill called Cerro Balena Whale Hill, 40 meters above sea level that during road work in 2010 was found to contain fossils of 40 whales along with a collection of other marine mammals such as dolphins and seals, not to mention some fish related to swordfish. It initially seemed like an amazing case of mass fossilization. How could dozens of animals of various species have all died at once, and in so many cases have been preserved? The most accepted explanation is that the numerous mammals and fish were deposited over time, and that the hill in question happened to be a place where the bodies were washed up, only to have nature preserved them for 6 to 9 million years. The rather worrying suspect of the death that led them to wash up on land was spontaneous algae infection. True or not, certainly left an unusual resting place for quite a menagerie. Number 7. Southern Tunisian Desert Lake. We are all familiar with the trope of desperate people exposed to desert climates for too long who start to see mirages of water that appears out of nowhere. This concept became real in an area of Tunisia 25 kilometers from Gaza in July 2014 when a lake seemed to appear out of nowhere. It was no small body of water either. It spanned about 2.6 acres and was estimated to be as much as 18 meters deep according to the digital journal. Naturally, it drew many people who wanted relief from the heat, which could climb over 100 degrees Fahrenheit. For those who prefer rational explanation for seemingly anomalous events, the events option for a potential source is not good for the people who threw themselves in it. Nearby, there are phosphate mines, and the lake potentially came from an underwater spring freed by the mining process. This unfortunately would mean the lake is likely contaminated with carcinogens and potentially radioactive carcinogens at that. Still, the Tunisian government did not attempt to ban swimming in it. Number 6. Egyptian tone patterns. Let's return to Egypt now for a discovery that puzzled the internet when people began stumbling upon it in 2014 while using Google Maps. It was a spiral pattern near El Guana, Egypt, close to the Red Sea, of clearly defined and precisely arrayed cone shapes, either as mounds or precisely structured pits. Overall, the patterns span 1 million square feet, with a cone 100 feet in diameter in the center. It turned out to have been an art piece called Desert Breath that was finished in 1997 under the supervision of Danny Strato. After several years of work, it seemed to fall in and out of the public consciousness, having also been rediscovered in 2009. Stratos said that he originally filled the pit surrounding the central cone with water up to the rim, but it perhaps not surprising that the water didn't linger in the desert. Number 5. Horned kangaroo fossils. In Australia, Nullarbor Desert along the middle southern coast in 2002, a dig found a collection of skeletons that the Australian Broadcasting Corporation described as weird kangaroos. They had not just digging claws despite being larger than most boring animals, and kangaroos not being boring animals anyway, but also odd protrusions above their eyes. At first, it was thought these were horns, but that didn't fit how little they extended from the forehead. So then it was suspected they were more like an unusual eye guard. It also noted by new scientists that the kangaroo's tail shape indicate that they had strange bulbous noses, indicating they looked like alien kangaroo clowns. If that sounds creepy to anyone else, we can at least be reassured that the animal was a mere harmless herbivore. Number 4. Fairy circle stumped scientists for years. The name fairy circle makes you imagine something with some strange beauty or at least a little whimsy. In fact, it's more about a lack of life than anything charming. In the Namib Desert along the southwestern coast of Africa, largely in the country of Namibia, and in Australia, there are odd circles in the middle of areas of vegetation where in perfectly fertile ground had no grass growing in them, evenly spaced and exactly concentric. It looks like something a conspiracy theorist would claim was evidence a UFO landed. More mundane theories such as fires and winds being the culprit were ruled out by the fact that these bare patches could last for decades, some remaining free of plants life for as long as 25 years. As recently as 2012, scientists were completely unsure, and it wasn't until 2017 that any viable explanations were put forward. The leading explanations are a combination of the circle formerly being the sites of the termite colonies. Their even spacing is consistent with rival termite colonies elsewhere, and that plant root systems do this as means of disturbing water during inevitable shortage. Neither of these fully explain why the circles will remain barren for so long with no visible trace of colonies, but they are both at least a little more likely than them being the work of literal fairies. Number 3. Works of the Old Man. They were the first observed when the Air British pilot Percy Maitland in 1927, but these enigmatic structures in Iraq haven't really captured the public imaginations the way that they deserve. In central eastern Jordan, near the Ashraf Oasis, there are hundreds of wheel structures more than 80 feet wide, some as many as 200 feet wide, and their use is lost to history. The best guess is that they are cemeteries that date back millennia, but these haven't been disputed. Over in northern Jordan, the Black Desert possesses two such circles that date back a whopping 8,500 years, making them far older than the world's oldest known pyramid, and leaving behind not a single hint as to why they were created. As you can see, they often have rocks arrayed within them that indicate that they are supposed to be the symbols, but the only clues that anyone has found are that some are arrayed in patterns to point towards the rising sun. Similar but simpler shapes have also been found in Saudi Arabia. While we are on the subject of Saudi Arabia, it has perhaps the largest numbers of these mysterious shapes. Large stone triangles were assembled, and so it's known that about them that they haven't even given a date of origin. There are also very tall pairs of long U shapes that have been deep gates which have been carved in the ground or formed by assembling rocks which number over 300, and they seem to be exclusive to Saudi Arabia. Perhaps we will never really learn much more than about them than they are, as the ones taught them works of the old man. The unexplained gigantic marine man. The 4 kilometer tall white etching near Adelaide in South Australia of an indigenous hunter about to throw a stick usually cut into the ground about a third of a meter deep and about as wide as an average road was discovered in 1998. Since it was first spotted from the air, it's been uncertain who made it, how, or why. The most likely person was Badius Dotberg, but all that was known about it was he said he wanted to make something like it. He claimed his would be visible from space, which this thing definitely is not, and had paid to have one designed, but there was no info about specifics such as equipment or people hired, and he died in 2002 before he was reached for an interview that could reveal whether or not he was the one who supervised its creation. Not that there is any shortage of local people who claim to have worked on it, but how they kept the creation under wraps for as long as they did remains unclear. Number 1. The emptied body of Ryan Singleton. Our final entry is a tragic one. In 2013, a 24-year-old openly gay male model from Georgia, Ryan Singleton, was found dead by hikers in California's Mojave Desert 2.5 months after he disappeared. His remains were particularly grisly sight. His eyes, lungs, liver, kidneys, and heart had been removed. No evidence of a perpetrator were found, or even any leads of 2016. Police, for their parts, felt that the removed organs did not indicate that Singleton had been murdered by an organ harvesting ring. They attributed the missing organs to scavenging animals, though if that was the case, it seems odd that the other man, other than the missing organs, his body was generally intact. The family suspected that either Singleton had made an enemy in the entertainment industry or his orientation had caused someone to murder him in hate crime. If he had died of natural causes, no reason was found why he would have died where he did. At the time of writing, the investigation is ongoing. So this is the end of the video of the 10 strangest things found in deserts, and I hope you guys enjoy it, and don't forget to subscribe, like, and comment.